Thanks a lot for joining us again on TVC Breakfast. So the head of the Civil Service of the Federation, that's Didi Walson-Jack, has reaffirmed that investigations into civil servants receiving salaries while residing overseas continues. She emphasized the government's commitment to eliminating such irregularities, saying steps are being taken to ensure that individuals who have relocated abroad seeking better opportunities no longer benefit from the system back home. Mrs. Walson-Jack also mentioned that the government is utilizing the integrated personnel and payroll information system to monitor staff movements effectively. Recall that in June of 2024, President Bola Tinubu directed that all civil servants drawing salaries from the government after relocation should face sanctions and must refund the monies they received. The president also instructed that the supervisors and department heads of these individuals be punished for enabling the fraud under their oversight. That's where our next discussion is headed. Joining us in the studio is Abayomi Okeashiwaju. He's the president of the Yewa Awori Youth Council. Welcome.
Thank you.
And how are you doing?
Well,
today?
I'm good. Thank God it's Friday.
Good to know. Right, so this is an ongoing matter. There's been a lot of outcry over it. It's not a new occurrence. It's not a new trend. But what are your thoughts on this? Well, I call it a menace now. But what are your thoughts on this trend? And do you think the federal government has what it takes to nip it in the bud?
All right. Number one, the federal government has all it takes to actually nip it in the mud. But it also speaks to the conscience of those who are involved in this. You know, sometimes when people accuse people in government of embezzlement, of fraud, of malpractices and all that, and the ones who are accusing people of this are also involved. And that's why we keep saying that Nigerians are not actually averse to corruption. They are only averse to it because it's not beneficial to them. So the moment a particular system that is rotten, is beneficial to a particular person, it sees it as grace. They call it grace. You understand that? Oh, it's working for me. But the question is, can we continue this way? And the answer is no. And one of the questions that also begs for answer is the fact that don't we have auditors, internal auditors now, in some of these federal government establishments? What do they do? Are they not checking, for these loopholes? Because ideally, if you have IPPIS, which is expected to be a digital-enabled system that, works out payroll and salaries for federal government employees, then there should also be, once in a while, on the spot check, if some of these workers are actually available at their desk. NYSC did something. Before now, when some of us served, there was nothing like thumb printing when you go for, what's it called then?
The monthly CDS.
Yes, CDS and the clearance thing.
Clearance.
And it's because they introduced it because they noticed that there are many ghost NYSC, coppers. Coppers
at the
everywhere.
Time, right.
All they just need to do is to pay off their employer or the LI or somebody, and the next thing, they go about their other business, leaving the primary one that they opted for in the first place. But when they introduce these biometrics, many of them, they will have to travel back to their PPE. Even though that does not mean that the ghosting has stopped in the NYSC.
But it's checked.
But it has been checked. The fact that you still have to travel back to do your clearance, unlike when you just have to call that, please, just let me submit the document, I can't come. So can we introduce that into the Federal Civil Service as well? It may not be every month. It may just be at random without even planning it, because the truth is that the moment you say it's going to happen on a particular day, there will be a tip-off. They will call themselves, oh, can you come around? Because it's not just even about people that have traveled abroad. There are some people that are not at their primary station of work every month. In fact, year in, year out. And yet, they are milking the treasury of the country for the work they are not doing. And these are the same set of people that will clamor for increase in salary, minimum wage must be increased and all that. And yet, you are not giving in your best. So, to your question, federal government has the capacity to put this in check.
Well, so if you look at the Japa syndrome, a lot of people are really wanting out, due to what they will say, maybe the economic situation of the country and all of that. And you'll be wondering, why would someone who is running away from something get to the country, their El Dorado, working there, maybe getting some work and all of that? Why did they not want to let go of what used to, feed them in the first place? Does that not speak to the transparency, the level of bureaucracy, or I mentioned transparency and the misgovernance in the civil service for allowing something like that to go on, continuously?
That's why I said our people even lack conscience in the first place. You accuse the system of not working, and that's why you want to leave that system to a better place. Why are you still collecting money from that same system? Then let those who are probably comfortable or are willing or able to work in that system get on board and collect what you were collecting before, instead of you still maintaining that amount and yet earning a better pay abroad. So one, it speaks to our conscience as human beings that why should we be found in such a net?
But mark you, it's not all of those that have jackpot, so to speak, are the one that are perpetrating this.
Yeah, I know.
Some, maybe they are supervisors, maybe they are managers, whatever you want to call them, they are the one who probably will change their names, or maybe maintain their name, just change their account details, and then they will be receiving the salary. So I've heard. So what do we do about that? You mentioned IPPIS, which has maybe failed in that regard.
Yeah, and that's why I said there should be normally an internal auditor in every establishment who is supposed to check this. In the private sector, you can hardly find this. Choose the word, or note the word hardly, because anything can happen in Nigeria.
Depending on how large.
Large, yes. So internal auditors are expected to come around once in a while and check, are you on your desk? Are you doing the job given to you? Because the work of an internal auditor is not limited to detecting fraud or that has to do with finance. It has to do with even you delivering your KPIs on the job. If you are not meeting the standard that is required of your job description, they would query you. They will ask why. So if a supervisor at work is enabling or shielding this kind of system, then the auditor should be on ground to curb such excesses. So except all of them have probably now connived to perpetrate this act. Except that is what is happening.
Of course, it's not done by one person.
Yes, of course. You have to carry. So sometimes you may even find out that the organ at the top may even be aware, and he will be collecting, stipends. For me, it's stipends. Meanwhile, it's also very important that the sanction that the federal government promised should actually be meted out, because if it is not done, if it is swept under the carpet, you are sending a wrong signal that things like this can always go on unabated without anybody, checking you.
And that's why the president has also said that, it's not just such former civil servants that should be punished. These monies, this cycle should stop, but the dragnet should also extend to the supervisors and heads of department who...
Even the internal auditor.
Right, should all of these people should be captured. And, like Ibrahim was asking, there is... Even after you leave, and I take your point that the moment when a staff resigns, the internal auditors or the internal mechanism should swing into action and stop every transfer of funds, of salaries and the like. But if you would look at the impact of this, or before we even talk about the impact, what do you think could be the reason why you've gone to what you believe is a better land? Is it insecurity that you would call it? Is it fear of the unknown that you would call it, that would make you to want to continue to be collecting salaries when you have already left the employment, that immediate employment? Yes, you've spoken about corruption, but could there be some other underlying factors?
It is greed. Okay. Greed is the word. The same reason why you would always want to amass wealth to yourself without recourse to your neighbor, whether he or she is living fine, is simply greed. Because why would you, in the first place, you left a system to another country for a better, lifestyle.
A greener pasture.
And yet you are still collecting salary here at home. Now, I read that one of the guys who reported his case to BBC said, because a fictitious name was quoted as David, he said, even if they stop it, he does not care, because presently is anyway better. So, since you know that it's just a meager amount, why then hold on to it?
And then you accuse Nigerian leaders of being corrupt.
Nigerian leaders of being corrupt. He who comes to equity must come with clean hands. That's the problem we have in this country. You see, and over there, that they have a very strict system that works by rule. A place where I recalled some times ago, I was begging a police officer in a particular country over there. And he told me, he said, if I should beg him again, that I would never enter their country in my lifetime again. You can imagine, normal begging. Because where I'm coming from, or where I was coming from, in Nigeria where we are.
It's like a default.
Yes, whenever there are issues, we just take the policeman to one side and say, Oga, can we talk?
Even when you are not at fault,
yes,
you just want to move
Oga,
on.
Can we talk?
Even the beggy, sorry, you are the beggy, the begged will say, you are not begging, so you're not begging.
You're not begging. I said, we even be seeking, thank you, we even be seeking for begging, but you can imagine in their own place, they said, don't beg. Let the law just take its full course on this matter.
That's right.
I was like, wow. So this is how things work here. And that's why you see most Nigerians who probably act with impunity here.
Yeah.
When they get over there, they put themselves in check.
They're the best of...
in line. You will see their character. They will display fantastic character. And you just wonder what happened. It's simply because where they are coming from, things are allowed. Anyhowness, like they call it. Anyhowness is
badly
allowed.
behaved among them.
Yes. But over there, you have to follow the rules. So for me, to answer your question, it's not just about anything. It's about greed. And it should be checked.
Well, the government actually plans to investigate and prosecute offenders. So I'm wondering how feasible this enforcement will be, considering the complexities and potential loopholes in the civil service, as we see, and how do we make sure that this does not lead to, political victimization, in handling some of this matter?
I wanted to say the best way, but of course, it is subject to criticism. That the best way to curb this is to get external auditors to come and do the work. Okay. You cannot allow the
incorruptible external.
You understand? The ones
auditor
who deign to probe themselves and they fish out the culprits in this case. It may not work because they're in the system together. We live in a country where even when you are at a party, except the caterer or the servers, you may not be served. You may not get food. So there is a lot of favoritism, nepotism that works in the system. So if care is not taken, at the moment while you within are trying to fish out this culprit, there might be an emotional blackmail on you and say, Oga, do you want me to lose? Oga, don't you understand? My children are the one. In fact, it's even my sick mother that's actually feeding on this. And they'll be playing on your, on your emotions. And at the end of the day, you may want to soft pedal or just give them a soft landing. But if it is somebody from outside, an external person, who probably does not have any ties with these people, then probably a fair and balanced, check can be done. And such report, like I do say, in this case, name and shame is very, very important. Because if you don't name and shame them in the public, it will not send signals to others. Nigeria can be a great country if you and I can be a great person within ourselves.
What is your greatest worry in terms of looking at the dimensions, the implications of this trend, especially amidst the joblessness, job losses in our country right now, the government trying to curb leakages here and there, and looking at this? Because some people may think it's just me feeding fat on the national cake, getting my own share of the national cake. But when you look at the bigger picture, what is the major worry or the major implication of this for you?
Okay, let me outline them. Number one, the main people, the real guys who are in the market looking for job will not get the job because you are still seen as an employee of the organization, whereas you are only collecting salary, but you are not working. So probably somebody that needs to come in and take over your office will definitely not come in. Then two, there will be pressure. That is even if there is work at all. There will be pressure on your colleagues. Because normally, there should be a skill gap the moment an employee leaves an organization. And the skill gap will necessitate a new recruitment. So now, if it's still assumed that you are within that organization, there won't be need to employ. Then the work that you are doing will definitely be transferred to probably some other colleagues of yours that are on grant. So there will be pressure on some of your colleagues who are supposed to be doing lesser work, but they'll be doing more work. That's if there is even work at all. Because let's clear it.
That's right.
That's if there is even work at all within that place. That's number two. Number three, the government's treasury that we keep saying is slim, is not fat. You are still feeding on it. So what do you expect of that government treasury? It will become emaciated to the extent that you would think, in fact, I don't even know the right term to use. So you are also feeding fat on a very slim treasury of the government. So these three items that I've just outlined are the first direct, impact as a result of what these people are perpetrating. But there is still more. Of course, the ripple effect, and all that. Because if corruption is allowed to go unchecked, it will breed more actions. Because if somebody notices that such is going on and nobody is checking it, you will begin to think of another idea. What can we do again to beat this system? If this one can work, that means we can come up with another very... I wanted to use the word devilish because these things are not normal.
That's right.
Act. You begin to think of more devilish act to perpetrate again within the system.
That speaks to, when we have new person in government, maybe at the federal level or even at the state level, when they come in, they feel, yes, we have over-bloated workforce. The civil service is really over-bloated. And then they need to clear out ghost workers, even though some people will cry. We've seen some states, some former governors, did that. Is that to say that what they have is just initial gra-gra, that whenever they do it, and then we see that they've done it, but we still have this issue within our system? Is that to say they just, at the end of the day, get submerged or immersed into what really obtains, and they just forget it, or they have so many issues that's probably they've beaten off than they can chew?
I mentioned emotional blackmail the other time. I recalled, was it not Governor Fayose who, got to the office and realized that as at 9 a.m., civil servants were not even behind their desk. They are not at work. And when they came, they started begging, you understand? And of course, there is this emotional blackmail that was set in. Yes, sir, we are the one that voted for you. If it had not been us, there was no way you would have returned back to office. And of course, there are some people who also be speaking to the governor and say, Mr. Governor, we understand. We need to maintain a stronghold in this space. Civil servants, they are the main in this thing. And that's why I said the ones who probably get enthroned by a corrupt system may find it difficult to fight that corrupt system.
That ladder that brought you there.
Do you understand? Yes, you may find it difficult. Because the moment you say you want to, I think the only person who made such attempt was the late Yar'Adua, who actually confessed that the election that brought him into office was flawed. And therefore, he plans to right the wrongs. But unfortunately, the man did not, live long to give us that dividend of democracy that we envisaged then. So it's very, very difficult. So it is only when you rise to the top without the support or funding of some of these critical stakeholders that you can say you want to fight them. So the initial gra-gra of the governors of, even head of service sometimes, when they become head of service, probably from being a permanent secretary, they would say, no, it's not going to be business as usual. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. But at the end of the day, by the time they begin to speak to their emotions, even sending your mother to you, it goes to that extent that some people will go and look for somebody that you cannot resist his or her admonishment. They will go and tell the person, can you help me talk to your son or to your brother? And when the person comes, you definitely don't want to, step on toes And that's why the initial gaga is what we usually do. And at the end of the day, everything, and the thing goes on. Remember when Buhari also came, it was a case of body language in 2015. People were adjusting. The man of 1984 is back in 2015. The man that taught us how to stay on cue, the man that taught us how to, live a disciplined life is back. People were putting themselves in check. But at the end of the day, when they noticed that
what we saw was body language,
the Baba self is not, it was just body language and no decisive actions and all that. Everybody went back to their normal self. So it's about decisive leadership. It's about strong-willed leadership. And those who will do that are probably those who will get to the top without the funding, the support, or any kind of assistance from the corrupt system. With that actually possible, I doubt it.
Well, let's look at how far this will go, because the president can't do it all. He has given a directive. The head of service says, the new head of service says she's running with that. But looking at the interventions of the ministers in this light, we hope to see that these things trickle down even to the state levels where the commissioners, because, the ministers, the commissioners are usually the outsiders. And how many of them even bother to check what they are signing? And because activists will tell you that most of this corruption, observers, experts will tell you most of this corruption that we see in the civil service, of course it trickles, the bulk lies on the table of the commissioners of the ministers, but one also needs to penetrate deeply to see, check the activities of directors and all the other staff to be sure that they are working, free from corruption. But how much of a breakthrough do you think this would go if our ministers and our commissioners can also take this as part of their core mandate to ensure that corruption is eradicated to the barest minimum under their domains in the ministries?
All right. The first question they need to ask themselves is, do they even have a vision? Do they intend to leave the office and leave a legacy that at the end of the day people will talk about and say, no, this woman or this man is indeed a great man? Because the truth is this, even the one that is corrupt appreciates the one who is not corrupt. See, if you are strong-willed, if you follow the law to the letter, people will respect you.
That's right.
Now, at the moment when you were probably dishing out some of these instructions or making some of these policies and all that, it may not go down well with those people, and there will be grumbling here and there and all that. But at the end of the day, if you succeed, the moment you leave the office, you will see people celebrate you. Your name will be written in gold.
Even though you may have stepped on toes.
On toes. People will still say that, oh, this man gave us,
his own.
Yes, he gave us
That's right.
this fantastic, policy, and he implemented it. So if you want your name to be written in gold, because somebody defined a good leader and somebody who takes his people from where they are to where they want to be. But he now went further to say that a great leader will take his people from where they are to where they ought to be. You understand? Right. So there is the power of foresight and vision for great leaders that they don't see now, they see tomorrow. So they walk towards it. And so that's why I usually say that most leaders, wherever you find yourself, probably in a managerial position, because a manager is different from a leader. So if you're a leader and you find yourself in a managerial position, then when you are trying to give to your people what will benefit them in the future, in the meantime, when they are grumbling, can you please caution the effect? Then, by way of communication, let them know that there is indeed a light at the end of the tunnel. That what you are doing now is not just something that will affect them now, but it's going to be a prosperous moment for them in the future. It's just like, how do we tell our kids about malaria thing? Sometimes some of our kids, we want to say they don't want to wear clothes. They don't want to do some things. And you are trying to tell them that, see, mosquito will bite you and you will fall sick. So what do I need to do? Because they just want to enjoy that moment. I will need to show them how many people malaria killed. Show them sick people on the bed and ask them, would you have loved to appear like this?
Absolutely.
Definitely when kids see this, that's why I said power of communication.
Yeah.
When they see this, they'll be like, no, I don't want to be like this. So in fact, they'll be the one telling you, the parents, even when you parents try to remove your clothes or allow mosquitoes. Mommy, you better go and wear your clothes. I don't want you to fall sick. So that's why I said there is this communication thing.
That's right.
Because a leader for real must be democratic, must at some times too be autocratic. You understand?
A decision.
You know, the two must be used, but at what time will be at your own determination. You'll be the one to determine when to use it.
So if you look at the front page of the Platform newspaper, it says UK earned over 40 billion naira in visa fees from Nigerians between 2023 and 2024. You know, that speaks to, you know, the growing, you know, ongoing brain drain that we're experiencing. So what immediate and probably long-term strategies you would like to recommend in order to tackle this issue of, you know, the Japa syndrome and all of that, especially with how to retain skilled professionals, but also rebuild faith in governance and the civil service?
What are we looking for out there? Why, if you ask people who traveled out, why do they want to really, or why have they decided to actually Japa? The basic things are there, over there. Good roads. I don't need to know a nurse in the hospital to get treatment. There is a system that works over there. Electricity, even though it's been paid for, yes, but it is available.
That's why when you said there's a light, a leader should know that there is a light, or should make people know that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But if you go to those countries, you see light inside the tunnel.
Inside it. You even see light outside the tunnel. So you know that definitely the tunnel itself is well lit.
Especially when the light is not from the national grid.
Yes, exactly. So the basic things are what people actually going
and simple things. Okay, simple yes, you already said basic. Right?
Basic education. You just want, they believe that, you know, and that's why you see Nigerian students, they do well when they study abroad.
That's right.
Why? Because we read so hard here. Our life, everything about us here is hard. I have a basic 4 kid at home, a GSS 2 kid at home, and just this morning, I saw the GSS 2 boy reading, studying early in the morning, as in the night, over the, you know, during the night, he was studying. I was like, why is life so hard? Well, I told the mom, my wife, I said, while I was, I know they read though, as they teach us for school now, so you don't enter. We just, why is life so hard? So imagine if he carries that mentality abroad, he will just, Cambridge. You know, he will go far. He will go far. So it's because here, even your teachers are hard on you. They make it look like if you fail, you are failing in life entirely. So the basics, if government can just provide the basics, like we should not be talking about this our road now, Lagos-Abeokuta Expressway, we are still battling with it. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, we are still battling
with it.
National grid collapsing, you know, multiple times in a month. You know, if these basic things are provided, then of course there won't be need for us to Japa. All
right, Abayomi Oke-Asiwaju, President of Yewa Awori Youth Council. Thanks a lot for your contributions on the program.
Thank you too.
Right.